So this morning, a very important topic in this hour, grooming gangs in the UK. I have been wanting to cover this conversation. We've seen the stories developed over this week, and clearly, just to remind all of us, we can't talk about any specific court cases, ongoing court cases. I know there'll be a great deal of you out there who are very frustrated by certain events this week, certain people being arrested or whatever. What we have to remember is that the police are trying to get this case through court. They are trying to get different individuals to go through court properly, and if by any chance we are to go against the court, then we will end up having this court case thrown out. So at no point in this show can we mention in any way any court case that is ongoing. I'm going to move quickly to Mohan, who's been kind enough to join us here in studio, even though he has a meeting he's supposed to be at, so he has to whisk away. But Mohan, the reason I managed to track you down with my brilliant listeners' help, my followers' help, I was like, who is this gentleman? Let's make it a general court case that you were standing outside of. Why were you standing outside a court case on the day that individuals were going to court about a grooming case?
I think it's about supporting the families who've gone through the traumatic experience of their children being abused, and it's about showing solidarity that, you know, abuse of this kind shouldn't be happening in Britain. So it's about uniting, holding hands and saying, no, it's got to stop. And the more people that are out there, the better it will be. And I think the more people that are out there and diverse, from different cultures and different backgrounds, then, you know, the politicians and the people upstairs have got to listen and watch and put in the procedures to stop this.
Absolutely. And do you want to say a little bit about, because obviously I can see you and how fantastic you are. I actually want to grow a beard myself. I'm sure that's not too far off either. But maybe you could just tell us, or tell the listeners who can't necessarily see you, although they can at lbc.co.uk, about your community, about the group you represent. Maybe talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, I mean, we founded the Sikh Awareness Society back in 1997 when, through the grapevine, we were getting a lot of cases where young Sikh girls were being groomed. And coming across cases, we realised there was no organisation within the Sikh community that was dealing with these kind of things. So 5 of us actually formed a group, and it's Sikh Awareness Society. So it's a society raising awareness on taboo issues. We started just by raising awareness, but then it became the helping, and now we do the whole kit and caboodle. It's for the last 20 years, the cases have been increasing. The awareness is kicked in. We first started with the Sikh community. We were helping the Hindu community. We're helping the Buddhist community. We've been in churches, and the only places where we're not allowed in, or we've never been sort of asked to go in, is the madrasas or the mosques.
Absolutely. And when you think about the communities you work with, you go around talking to individuals. Can you give us an example of the sorts of things you're talking about? What's the messaging, the sort of key messaging you're trying to deliver?
Well, the position that we're in at this present time. So, you know, how big the problem is, and how we need to then, as communities, unite together and find a solution. So we're not talking about this in 5 years down the road or 10 years down the road and it's still got a problem. So we want to put a way forward as well. So we raise the awareness, and then we seek awareness. We sort of take on board what people and communities have got to say, and then we try to push our parliamentary figures into thinking that way.
And I'm now thinking about a specific, having watched and listened and read, and there's lots of stuff out there. I can help push it on my Twitter later, videos with you, a BBC programme that you made about specific cases, without necessarily identifying obviously individuals. I'm thinking about 1 or 2 specific instances where perhaps parents have been frustrated because the police didn't seem to want to know, or maybe another example of someone within your community who they've had problems with their own daughter, and how your community handles that. So what would you, just a couple of individual examples might help to give light to some of this?
Well, you know, I mean, when you talk about the particular documentary that the BBC done about 3 years ago, there were a wide range of cases where a 12-year-old girl was groomed. She was failed by the council, Slough Council. The family moved to Walsall. She was failed there. The police didn't take take on board what the family was saying. So the family were ostracized, and the girl was then taken into care, and then the groomer was able to abuse her and use her, and the family had no say. And then after 2-3 years of all this research in the police and a simple apology, but the girl was completely destroyed, and that was sort of covered.
And just when you say the word the family, I know the case
The
you're talking
father and the
about.
mother,
Yes,
yeah,
they sold their house, they moved
That's
completely
right, yeah.
to try and start afresh. Again, that happened, and they were ostracized. When you say they were ostracized, could you help explain why that might be?
I don't think the groomers are a couple of steps ahead of us. When the law came in of false marriages, now that was a good law. Forced marriages, that was a good law. But the groomer is using that, so he's saying to a 15-16-year-old girl, go to the police, say you're going to be forcefully married, and they'll take you straight into care without even asking, because that's the new law, and that's the thing that's in. So straight away, there becomes a wall between the parent and the authorities.
I see what you're saying. So because forced marriage is no longer allowed in the UK,
That's right, yeah.
The daughter, for example, can go to the police, say she's going to be forced into marriage. That will ostracise her from her family. She'll be taken into care.
That's right.
And then the groomers have got free range
access to, because the groomer, she's obviously going to contact the groomer because she perceives this as a boyfriend
and as a new family.
That's
almost
right, yeah. So she's going to be in contact with it, but she's got no contact with the family has no contact with the daughter. The authorities are not really been open about everything, and with this particular case, after 3 years, they apologized, and apology is no good when you've got a child who's completely damaged and destroyed.
And in terms of the authorities, I'm thinking of two levels. One, and I've had so many emails. You have so much support out there. Emails from Canada, from
Sure.
America, all incredibly supportive of you and your community, the Sikh community, for speaking out. What is the problem with the police? Perhaps that's not a kind question. What is it with the authorities? Is there too much cultural sensitivity? Is there too much political correctness? What is this
I think it is
problem?
down to political correctness, but it's also down to nobody wants to be called a racist. Nobody wants to call a spade a spade. Nobody really is grabbing the bull by the horns and saying no. Abuse is abuse. But when they don't want to be labelled that we're after one community or targeting one community. So the MPs and the police, you can see all the reports coming out of Rotherham, the failings of the police, the failings of the local councillors, the failing of the whole system failed, and that's what's been happening for the last 30 years. And it is PC. People are just too afraid to too afraid to speak the truth. And this is what really, really bugs us. I mean, when they label an Asian problem, come on, really think of it. Isn't it an Asian problem? Asia is a very, very big continent. And, even if you go back into the 70s when England played football out in Europe and there were riots, they were called English hooligans. They weren't called European hooligans. They were called English hooligans.
So it's a point I had just here, a note, actually, I wanted to ask you, and I appreciate it's not a terribly sensitive question, but when other media outlets use the word Asian as a sort of euphemism for to avoid addressing any particular culture or faith system, is that something that's hard? In the Sikh community, for example, you get this bracket Asian. That feels wrong in itself then.
Well, it's insulting because we're all tarnished with the same brush. Now, West Midlands Police, I can actually say that because they were sitting on information for the last 40 years and they know 85% of the perpetrators were Asians. And when you look at the names, they would belong to one particular community. Why don't you say that? And this is what really bugs us. This is where we want the media to change and use the right terminology and the right words. So not everybody's affected by it. Those that are affected, if they use the right terminology and the right words, at least we can put the resources towards that to tackle the problem. But when you put Asia as a big continent, where do you start?
And I appreciate we have to let you go very soon, but I want you to be able to talk and have a moment to say what you're actually doing. Maybe there's a program that you're started work on you want to talk about.
Yeah, we've been requested and we've been working on this, and this is 20 years of experience that we've put into this project. We're actually teaching a 10-week course throughout the country in different centres for parents to spot the signs, because children are not coming and talking, and the secrecy with the groomer and what's the name. So through body language, through certain psychology, we're teaching parents how to bulletproof your family, sort of thing. So, we're not crying or we're not standing outside courtrooms shouting, save our children. We want the parents to start at parental level and then at school level and then further on. So we can educate the whole community because children spend time in school, 8 hours, they spend more time at home. Why can't we get this into the mainstream school system? And we're teaching the parents, and that's what we're rolling out.
It sounds fantastic. I completely want to come along. And if people want to access or find a way of getting into your 10-week course, or maybe a school out there, maybe a headmistress, headmaster's listening, how could they get in touch with you? We'll make sure we get the details on the website afterwards. But if you just want to...
Well, it's through social media, through our webpage. You can just message us.
The webpage address is?
That's a good one. It's
okay, don't worry. We'll find it.
Yeah, but through the social media and
sasorg.co.uk.
That's right.
So that's all one word, sasorg, sasorg.co.uk. That's your website.
And the other thing that we're pushing for, and this is very important, when with this particular crime, by the time the child's realised what's happened to it, it's damaged. So what we're pushing the authorities is really to act before. Don't wait for the victim to come up to you. Why can't when a third party comes to, like a parent, like a guardian, like a teacher who reports that the child, so you don't need the child's to come up to tell you. You take on board what the third party is saying, so you can start investigating these people before the damage is done.
Yes, because presumably you would say that at that point, when the child's finally got to a point where, and I'm just thinking of a case study I read yesterday, a child discovered with a fractured skull, unconscious in a pool of her own blood. At that point, it's too late.
That's right, yeah. And that's what we're trying to push for. And with the Asian tag, we're trying to push for. And we just want an open debate on this subject, because it's very divisive. It will split communities. So we don't want, rioting on the streets in the next 10, 15 years because we haven't done anything about it now, because we all know it's a problem. So we know it's a mega problem. Every second week, every third week, there's a court case. There's gangs of groups of men, 5, 10, 15, and these groups of men they're not just friends, they're uncles, they're brothers, and I'm sure that their own communities know. So we want an open dialogue so that we don't have problems further down the road. So, these words like racism and all these don't exist in my vocabulary, because there's a crime that's been committed on the streets of Britain, and we need to, dig deep and have an honest sort of reflection on it and put in the procedures that will eliminate this kind of crime, so it won't divide us who we live in Britain. And it's a beautiful society, and it's given a lot to us, and we'd like to leave that sort of legacy for our kids and everything, so we can all work together.
Mohan, I love you. I completely love you. I think you're a brilliant man. I thank you sincerely to you and your team here, and your lovely, is it your niece? Your lovely niece who's come with you, who's absolutely fabulous and way too utterly brilliant to even for me to be anywhere near her. But you're so fantastic. The message you're trying to share is so important, and I hope and I encourage many of my liberal friends in the media and feminists also, who I really think more feminists could stop marching around with placards and invite you to help come speak to people, just to get the conversation going, to start making a difference. So thank you so much. We'll put all your details up on the website, and anything we can do for you, I can do for you, do let us know. Thank you very much indeed.
For having us here.
Thank you very much. Shazia, you're in Glasgow. What would you like to say?
Hi Katie, thanks for having me on. I just would like to discuss about these grooming gangs. I'm from a Pakistani background. My dad's Pakistani, and I know a lot of Pakistani people do think white girls are slags. Not all, obviously not all, but a lot of them do think white girls are slags. These grooming gangs also, a large majority of them will be raping girls and probably boys in their own communities, and that's something that's very rarely discussed. We don't talk about the victims in Pakistani communities, and I think that's quite important as well, that there's no voice for them, but who's speaking out for them. And I think what Mohan's doing is absolutely amazing. And to be able to have somebody maybe from the Pakistani community to stand up and say, not in our name.
Shazia, thank you very much for your call, firstly. I agree with you entirely. If I'm being speaking honestly, of course, when I saw the picture outside, let's say, the General Court, I'm sorry to keep reiterating that, but it's very important, otherwise this show gets closed down, outside the General Court, the thing that struck me was that he was standing there saying, not in our name, on behalf of the Sikh community. And I agree with you entirely. How powerful would it be, even just visually, to have someone from those different communities stood there outside a general courtroom, remembering that we can't interfere with court operating procedures, stood there saying, not in my name either. Why is it, Shazia, we don't have somebody, or do we, from the Pakistani community saying, not in our name?
We probably do, and our voices aren't heard. We're accused of being racist as well. I'm accused of being right-wing if I want to discuss it, if I want to talk about Pakistani men raping children in our community. Then there's the whole issue of cultural sensitivity. If you go to the police, there's loads of things that come into play.
But in terms of loads, but if you were would you, Shazia, would you call yourself from a Pakistani background? Would that be a correct way for you to refer to yourself?
I'm mixed race, yes.
Yes. Would you stand there if there was let's say another court case going? Would you stand there so that you were saying, not in my name?
I would happily stand there and say, no, it's not in our name.
So we need a senior figure from your community. Who would be the most senior figure in a Pakistani community? Shazia, I'm just going to get our line sorted there. We're just having a small problem on the line. If I could remind callers as well, we just have to be a little bit careful of our language in terms of how people see white girls or whatever. If you were offended by any of the language on that last call, then I apologise for that. Sanjay, you're in Loughborough. What would you like to say this morning?
Hi, Katie, you all right?
Yes, good.
I wanted to say that I feel like it's the job of the Muslims who should be condemning it, considering 90% of these child gang rapists are Muslims, and there's only 4% Muslims in the UK. It makes up a large quantity. I feel like they should be doing the condemning, because the thing is, when non-believers are doing it, they seem to get in trouble or shouted racism, fascist or bigot. An example was like Tommy Robinson exposing him. Now, I feel like what he did was great. When you expose people like this, it stops them from even thinking about doing it again. But keeping them identity safe, out of the way, and just go back home like nothing's happened, they'll continue to do it, and it's just complete nonsense. I just feel like majority of the Muslims are intolerant because they don't do enough.
Can I ask you, Sanjay? Yeah. So I do see one side. Let me just say, for clarity, in terms of making sure that court case or a court case could proceed, it's very important, because if we're outside courts and we break or we violate the laws surrounding courts, then we end up having these court cases thrown out. And as you would appreciate, that is not something we would like. Filming or recording of courts and court precincts is illegal under Section 41. I'm sorry to bore you with this, but Section 41 of the Criminal Justice Act. People need to bear in mind you cannot be filming outside courts in a certain way, otherwise these cases get thrown out. But let me go to your other points, Sanjay. Can I ask, are you a Muslim? Do you identify as a Muslim?
No, I'm a Hindu, and Sanjay is a pro-Hindu name, yeah.
Yes, right, perfect. So in terms of why we don't see someone from the Muslim community stand up, where are these individuals standing up? Why aren't they saying this does not represent our religion or our community? Why?
Because here's my answer. I feel, and it's proven fact of 1400 years of Islam, it feels that Islam is an intolerant ideology, and the people who follow it, they don't want to go against it. They have to proceed with what they're doing. Muslims, what they're doing right now, are going into non-Muslim country to overpopulate, to take over the country, and they also target non-Muslim girls.
Sajid, I appreciate where you're coming from, but I think what I'm trying to focus on is not an attack against one community. I'm trying to find a point where we could say, why don't more of us stand up, just like Mohan, and say this is not about one race, one religion, one culture. This is about all of us as parents saying we need to talk more about grooming gangs. And certainly for me, as a mother of a 12 and 11-year-old, I fear for my girls. We're talking about grooming gangs. A lot of you texting, tweeting in to say, Mohan Singh, amazing work. A lot of you also saying, why has it taken a Sikh gentleman to be able to say the things we should all be saying, that this isn't about being racist, this isn't attacking one particular group, this is being honest as parents, that we have a problem in the UK with grooming gangs, and we have a problem with dealing with the issue because the PC, because the establishment, because the police, because the establishment don't want to be seen to be too racist, don't want to be called racist. I've got other people angry at me. Katie, you're such a liar and a vile excuse of asterisks. Where can the Muslim community voice their opinions? Will you make it available for us to have our say? Of course, do give me a call, 03456060973. The gentleman there from Mayfair says you are racist scum, adding that there. I think that was Mohan's message, it really, is that just calling people racist probably isn't going to sort the problem. I don't mind that I'm called it, that's fine, I've accepted being called that word. That word doesn't mean much to me today, but I think Mohan's message, sir, was that using the word racist doesn't actually solve this problem. It just really calls someone a name. Do give me a call and have your say on air. Don't just text me that I'm racist scum. Call up, you can have your say, and let's get to the bottom of this problem. Maybe you can help me understand why no one from your community is standing up and saying these people don't represent my community. 03456060973. Now we're going to go to Emma. Emma, you're in Rotherham. What would you like to say? Thank you for your call.
Hi, morning. I'm in Rotherham. I'm a survivor of child sexual exploitation from Rotherham. I have had justice. My perpetrators were Pakistanis. And I can always remember I actually reported my abuse 14 years ago. I went to the authorities, my parents did. I sat and gave video interviews to the police. I was willing to work with them. And I never once looked at my perpetrators for what race or religion they were. I just simply stated who they were who'd committed these crimes against me and what they'd done. And as soon as I said the names, I was made to feel as though I was racist and I was the one who'd sort of got the problem. And that had continued all the way up to the J report actually coming out in Rotherham. And it was a way to sort of silence me as well, because I knew I wasn't racist, but I felt like it was used as a way to silence.
And Emma, can you give an example of the way they made you feel that was a racist thing today to say? Did they have any sort of commentary on the fact that the gentleman's name that were involved? I use the word gentleman loosely, obviously. What made you feel that you were being made to feel racist?
Well, specifically being told not to comment on the ethnicity of the perpetrators.
You were told that by whom?
I've been told that numerous times by police, social workers, anybody really who I come into contact with, that it's best to not comment on the ethnicity of the perpetrators.
And how does that make you feel? So what age were you when you were having those types of conversations where you were reporting things that were happening to you and you were being told, well, don't talk about the ethnicity? What sort of age?
I was 13 when I first reported multiple rapes. So I didn't, to be honest, at that age, I didn't really understand what they were sort of getting at about race and things, because I never looked at them for what race or religion they were. I just looked at them for who they were and what they'd done. But I just felt as though my perpetrators made me feel that I was the one in the wrong, and that fed into that. They fed into that because I felt like, well, maybe my perpetrator's right. Maybe it's not them who's got the problem. Maybe it's me.
And Emma, would you mind, if you're able and willing, to share a short story of what happened to you? What happened to you?
I was groomed from about the age of 12. And I was, and then I started hanging around in Rotherham Town Centre with the people who groomed me when I was 13. And then they was fine at first. They was nice. They was friendly. They was fun. They were exciting. Bit different to me everyday life because I come from a good family, and my life was going to school, coming home, having my tea with my family, doing my homework, and watching telly and going to bed. So it was a bit of excitement for me. They started then introducing soft drugs and alcohol, which I took because I wanted to be part of the in crowd and be popular. And then after that, the first time I was actually raped. I was a virgin. I was 13, and I was held down and raped. And then that's when it started. It started from there, where I would be raped every week, once a week, every week, and then they'd started passing me around. When I was 14, they took me to a property and they locked me in the property, and they took it in turns to sexually assault me one by one. And that was just how it was. That was sort of my life, really.
And how did you go from being the girl who went to school, came home, had your tea with your family, is it normal girl as we would, infer that, and then did your homework, watched a bit of telly, went to bed? How did you go from being that girl to a girl that was so far away from her family that you were being taken, locked up in a room, being abused by men? How did that happen, that journey from being the girl that was looked after, regular kid, to thinking it was okay or normal? At one point, did you think it was okay what they were doing?
I didn't. I always felt uncomfortable with it, but I didn't. Nobody made out it was wrong. None of the people, the perpetrators, made out it was wrong, and it just escalated so quickly because what was happening, I'd had the alcohol and the soft drugs. I'd been lying to my parents about where I'd been and who I'd been hanging around with because I knew that I'd be in trouble and they'd not let me out, and I was having so much fun with these people, which is a bit typical teenage behaviour. And then when it went really wrong and I was raped that first time, they put it across to me that that was just how sex was. Then obviously the violence started, and what they started to do is they started to blackmail me about the drugs and alcohol, saying that they would tell my parents and that I owed them money. So they fed into that thing where I thought, being a child, as you do, thinking that I would be in real serious trouble and that I was the issue. They then started threatening that they would gang rape my mum if I started speaking about it. They knew where I lived because I'd told them in that grooming process. They knew what school I went to, so I couldn't get away.
And Emma, I was just listening to you and the horror of it, and you can imagine how much that everything in you would want to protect your parents. Everything in you would do anything to protect your parents. So the idea that they were suggesting they were going to go and gang rape your mum, I guess anyone would think, right, no, I'll do anything but that. You can feel how easily that would work. Yeah. Even now, if someone threatened to attack my parents' home, they could take mine, take whatever, before that could happen. But based on what you were talking about, Emma, you said you reported it to the police at 13 but were raped again. Did the abuse carry on after you went to the police?
Yeah, I went to the police at 13. It continued. They said it was my word against his, and he was quite a nice guy, so it probably wouldn't stand in court. I'd saved the clothes that I'd been raped in. They actually lost them. So there was no evidence anymore. Then I slipped back into being exploited because for every one perpetrator that went away, there were another 10 because I was so vulnerable at that point. They got rid of all my friends. I'd got no friends. I was out of school at that point because the schools wouldn't have me in school because of the people I associated with. So I slipped back into CSE. I reported again at 14. They said there wasn't enough evidence. So what happened is because it wasn't getting better and the police wouldn't do anything, My parents actually moved me out of the country because nobody wanted to stop it, and that was the only way that they could stop it.
Okay, and so you were moved out of the country, and this is something I've seen a lot of in the examples I've been looking at, is parents needing to move their children, their daughters, out of the UK to try and get away from these gangs, because the gangs are networked between cities. Do you think that's a fair thing to say, Emma?
Oh yeah, definitely. I know that if I'd have been kept in the UK, even if I'd have moved 3-4 hours drive away, they would have drove and come and got me, because I'm still easy to access, but they couldn't get on a plane and come and get me.
And so, obviously, we don't want to know where you are, where you're living, or anything about that. But just for reference, you are still out of the UK now. And have you moved on with your life? How do you see your life when you look back?
No, I'm back in the UK now, and I have got justice now. So I'm moving on. You know, I've moved on so much, and you can move on. I'm lucky that I've got a really brilliant family who have supported me all the way through, and actually without them I wouldn't be where I am today.
Can I ask you something else, Emma? Do you have children?
Yes, I have one.
And how do you feel when you look at your child versus the UK that you had to leave?
It frightens me. I saw he's a little boy, he's only small, so obviously this is something that won't, if it ever did, it wouldn't affect him yet. It probably won't do, because I'm quite on the ball and aware of things, but I just feel that I can't imagine as a mother someone harming my baby, and I also can't imagine that if somebody did, me having to move my baby away from his home while the person who's harmed him walks about in theirs and is free and can just do what they want. And it's, I'm very aware, and I feel that I do have to, I probably am a bit more protective than I should be, because I know the dangers out there.
I don't know. I don't think any mum can be too protective. I'm going to ask you one little last question, Emma, and then I have to let you go, sadly. Yeah. Were you glad you had a little boy?
Yeah, I think if I'd have had a girl, I would have been, when she got to a teenager, really, it would have drove me mental, really. And so, to me, I'm glad I had a little boy. It's a bit of it's not a safe option, because it still happens to boys.
Of course, and I wouldn't want to infer or generalise in any way this is only a problem for little girls, but I know, speaking probably more as a mum, I would be glad I had a boy if I were you, I think.
Yeah, definitely.
Emma, thank you so much for your call. I wish you well, and for your bravery. And we'll share, if you have stories that we can share, I will, of course, put those out on Twitter later. I'm just really struck, actually, I'm supposed to be going to break, but I'm really struck by the idea that in 21st century UK, in a country that's one of the most civilised countries on the planet, that a lady who has been a victim of grooming gangs looked at her baby and was glad it was a boy. In this hour, we're talking about grooming gangs. So many of you, in your kitchens, Emma, if you're listening still, in tears. People, Katie Hopkins, oh my God, I'm still in tears in my kitchen. Katie, in my kitchen. Hearts go out to Emma, such a brave lady. Others very angry, and I think emotion does that, doesn't it? It can make you angry at the police, angry at the way you were treated, angry that a 13-year-old girl was asked if it was her problem, being made to feel that it was her problem. Katie, absolutely heartbreaking stuff. In tears in my kitchen. We'll have numbers for people later if you need anyone to call, but absolutely all of us with you, Emma, and I think it takes brave people like Emma, who has now got justice, but clearly spent a long time as a little girl not being listened to and being made to believe that she was the problem, she was the person in the wrong, and that potentially her parents were going to be attacked next. Sounds like very brave parents there indeed. Shazia, you're in Plaidstow, I think. What would you like to say?
Pastor, good morning. What I'd like to say is, from listening to the programme, there's a lot of finger pointing, and there's a lot of, oh, this is racist, that's not racist. But as parents, and I've got 3 daughters, it's my job to educate my child from a very young age, private to private, and what is allowed, what isn't allowed, to maybe drop them to school, pick them up, know where they are, know what they're doing, and talk to them openly about what's actually going on and what grooming gangs are about, and not hide from it or fare from saying the wrong thing or the right thing, because there is no wrong thing or right thing. Our children need to know they're our children, and we need to talk
Shazia,
to them.
do you think, though, that I was getting educated last night on the train, last night getting involved in this story over the week where I've been speaking with Mohan. I've been educating myself. I would say I know 5 times the amount I knew a week ago. Do you think parents know about how these grooming gangs actually work, about the hook, about the perpetrator, about the people that then are the coordinators, about how this network actually works? Do you think parents know?
I think parents also then need to educate themselves. I know, and I've got children. I've educated myself. It's my job to protect my child.
Yeah, no, I got that, but I'm asking, how do parents know about this stuff if we're not talking about it?
Yes, this is what it needs. It's all about talking. It's all about people talking about it. And instead of going on, if you're going to look at Rotherham, of course they're going to be certain culture, certain religions, but it's in every single area. And we also don't, like people focus on girls, but it's happening to boys as well. We need to talk, and it needs to be spoken about in school as well.
When you say, Shazia, sorry, if it's from Rotherham, of course it's going to be a certain area. I don't understand. Sorry, can you explain what you're saying?
I'm just saying the population there is very much a certain religion and a certain
What religion?
culture.
Why can't you say what religion?
I'd rather not, because
why not?
Because if we just point,
but you're not, Shazia. You're saying in Rotherham it's a certain religion. I'm asking what religion.
Okay, should we bring it to London then?
No, I'm asking you what. I'm asking you a simple question. No, you said Rotherham. You said it's a certain religion. I asked you a simple question. What religion?
But what? This is the thing we keep.
Are you not part of the problem? No, but are you not part of the problem, Shazia?
No,
are you not part of the problem? But you won't even. Go on then, say.
Okay, it's in Rotherham. We have a higher percentage of Muslims, of Pakistani Muslims. In Manchester, it's different. In Birmingham, it's different.
Okay, good. So, Shazia, I'm just asking now. I'm not actually, for me, this was a topic for this hour. I really want to focus on grooming gangs. I wanted to focus particularly on Mohan's brilliant message. But I'm asking now, Shazia, and I'm not getting at you in any way. I'm with you. As a mother, I'm with you.
Yes,
I'm asking, why are we now in a place where you're saying, I don't really want to say? What is that awkwardness about saying a specific religion?
I think we go off of the topic every time there's something discussed, whether that's knife crime or grooming gangs. We go off topic because everybody starts arguing about a certain religion, and it's always pointing the finger at certain religions or whatever religion. It's not about the religion.
Absolutely, and that's a message, Shazia, I've been trying to get across. If you could see my Twitter timeline here at LBC.
No, I absolutely agree.
No, people are saying Katie Hopkins won't even say what religion this is. Katie's been got to. Katie's part of the problem, but it's because I've been trying to focus on the topic. Yes. But Shazia, we have to say, don't we, I don't see leaders of the Muslim faith, leaders from the Muslim community doing what Mohan is doing. That's what I'm trying to get at.
Do you know what I think the solution is? I'm a Muslim mother who lives in East London. I am more than happy to go into mosques and go into, where they teach the children.
You're not allowed in the bits of mosque men go into, Shazia.
You're allowed in the bits where the children
Yeah, but you're not allowed. You're not even, as a woman, I'm sorry, Shazia, but as a woman, you're not even allowed in the mosque where the men go. So it's pointless you saying you're prepared to go and talk, because you're not even allowed in there. You've got to cover your head up to go to another bit of the building. Sorry, you want to talk to the children.
I know what you're saying, but we can communicate. It's all about communicating. We can communicate with them, and we can make them talk.
Look, Shazia, why don't you talk to your imam? Why don't you talk to the imam and say, listen, Katie would love you to come on her show, and she would love for you, as an imam, to say, this is not us. This is not who we are. This does not represent us. Why can't I have him on my show?
Katie, keep my number. and I will talk to the imam.
Katie, listen, Katie Hopkins. We'll get the team here. Charles, I'm going to hand you over to the team here. They're going to give you my email, my mobile, my home phone number. I can give you photographs of the tattoo on my back where it also gives advice how to get in touch with me after my death. I want your imam on my show. I want him to say, this is not us. This is not our community. Grooming gangs do not represent the Muslim faith. I want him on this show. I am pleading for an imam to do what the brilliant Moham Singh has done in this hour. Thank you so much for your text, tweets and calls. I'm sorry we can't get to all of them.
You didn't frankly have the balls to put country before party.